When you think about bad NFL teams, certain franchises probably come to mind like the Lions, Jets, or Browns. While each of these teams have had their fair share of fans wearing bags on their heads, none of those three actually hold the record for most regular season losses in franchise history. That record belongs to the objectively worst franchise in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. It seems like no matter how hard Arizona tries, they are cursed to never win a Lombardi trophy. And since their current franchise quarterback would rather win a Call of Duty game than a playoff one, we figured it's the perfect time to make a video exploring why the Cardinals suck so much. The Cardinals got their start in the city of Chicago. Originally the Chicago Cardinals, they weren't always the laughingstock of the league. They managed to win an NFL championship in 1925. They followed this up with another NFL championship in the year 1947, while also making back-to-back appearances in the league finale. The NFL was not always the predominant football league in America. Rivals like the AAFC, AFL, and UFL always provided a level of competition to the league. Once the AFL had been established and became a successful rival to the league, the owner of the Chicago Cardinals asked for the ability to relocate the team to St. Louis, or else he would change leagues. The NFL allowed the Cardinals to change host cities to St. Louis, and from 1960 to 1987, the gateway to the Midwest would be the home of the Cardinals. They shared the name with the local baseball team, which helped the team in terms of support and branding ability in the metropolitan area. This is when their woes officially began. While they had maintained a winning spirit while in the city of Chicago, their ownership group simply did not care when it came to the performance of the franchise on the field. Bill Bidwell, the owner of the Cardinals, had inherited the team from his father. While he liked owning the team, he really hated making any additional investments towards the program. We've seen how this plays out time and time again. No matter how bad you want your NFL team to get better, if you're not willing to pay for it, then it isn't going to happen. Bidwell was notoriously one of the cheapest owners in the league. They couldn't attract any free agent talent, and due to the team's low pay, most solid draft players would leave the first chance they got. The Cardinals were truly awful in St. Louis. Very few teams could play for so many years without any level of success. Over the course of their stint in the city, they managed to make the playoffs just 3 times. It didn't help that Bidwell thought they were always just one coaching change away from a Super Bowl. The management became a revolving door, and there was no semblance of stability anywhere in the franchise. There can be no cohesive strategy if the entire coaching staff is brand new and terrified of being fired. This also compounded on the team because they weren't able to make good draft picks for nearly 3 decades. Every time they would have a high selection, they were either a bust or the new coaching staff hadn't been interested in the player and wouldn't utilize them properly. So they couldn't attract any free agents with their low salaries, and they couldn't draft their way out of a paper bag either. This led to a noticeable decrease in fan support. After all, obviously no one wants to spend money year after year supporting a losing program. It didn't help the crowd numbers that the Cardinals were playing in the Busch Memorial Stadium, which lacked a lot of the modern amenities that were adding profit to the league's business operations. They had to share it with the baseball team, and because they consistently played so badly, it wasn't unusual for the stadium to be mostly empty on a Sunday. This compounded with the issue the team was already having in regards to signing players. There was no way for them to generate enough money to operate effectively. Granted, this was an issue they had totally placed upon themselves. If the owner would have been willing to invest more money into the team, things would have been different. Instead, they let it get to the point there was almost nothing the ownership could do to restart that level of fan interest they had previously. While they had high points like back-to-back playoff appearances in 1974 and 1975, it was mostly embarrassing to ever admit you were a Cardinals fan. Around the late 80s, it was a time of mass relocation and negotiation in NFL football. The Colts had just relocated to Indianapolis. Expansion teams were being added, and new stadiums were being built to support the increase in popularity. Bidwell obviously wanted in on this boom of building. He had been sharing the stadium with the baseball team for years. He felt that with a new stadium, he could drastically increase the revenue the team was generating and also bring back fan support from the population of the city. Now, like most NFL owners, he did not want to put up the money to build this new stadium himself. Bidwell was notoriously stingy, even for an NFL owner, and he felt that the city should be the ones to support the construction of the stadium. Obviously, city officials were skeptical of this, considering the fact the Cardinals could do anything but win games. and their fan support had been cratering ever since people realized they weren't winners. However, this didn't stop Bidwell from demanding that St. Louis front the money to make his team more profitable. Once Bidwell began to threaten to relocate the team, the city of St. Louis made a move that sealed the fate of the team in the city. They decided to threaten to seize the team by means of eminent domain. This meant that they would use the law to effectively seize the team from Bidwell and make it run as a public good. This would destroy all the value Bidwell had stored in the team. Plus, the league did not like this, as it opened the door for more cities to start taking over operations of NFL teams. Baltimore had tried to pull a similar move with the Colts year before, and it seems like once you threaten this, you can pretty much kiss your franchise goodbye. No business owner is going to keep his business in a city that is threatening to strip his rights of ownership away. St. Louis was unhappy to see the Cardinals go. All 12 of their remaining fans even put up a protest. Seriously, though, it was a weird time in NFL history. Teams that had been located in cities for decades were upping and moving all over other cities, making competing offers. But who had beaten out St. Louis for the Cardinals? The city of Phoenix is a massive urban sprawl, smack in the middle of the desert. They had been growing like crazy through the 70s and 80s, now boasting one of the largest metropolitan area populations in the country. They had just built a new Sun Devil Stadium that the Cardinals were going to be allowed to use for their games, and also offered extremely generous tax breaks and financial incentives that made the choice a no-brainer for Bidwell. On top of the generous offer of a stadium and tax breaks, Phoenix was a quickly growing metro market without much pro sports competition. While they were having to compete in St. Louis with several other professional sport teams, they would pretty much have the Phoenix market cornered. When looking at demographics, it also was clear that Phoenix was a faster growing market as well. St. Louis had hit its peak in population in the year 1950. Comparatively, Phoenix was still a growing market. If they were willing to offer him financial incentives, why would he stay in a shrinking market? We all know that this section of Cardinals history ends with them relocating to Phoenix. And while some St. Louis fans were mad, they were truly terrible while in the city. Through their stay in St. Louis, their win-loss was 186 wins and 202 losses. This is even with their golden era of the mid-70s included. Their last seasons in St. Louis were honestly embarrassing, with their last year being just 7-8. St. Louis was not excited to see them go. St. Louis has always been a very football-focused city. Even now with the Summer Football League, they have ranked first in attendance every year. The city has a love for football that is almost insatiable. So while they didn't want to pay for a stadium, and they weren't happy with the state or ownership of the team, the city was sad to see them go. Regardless of the battles of the city council and the business owner, the fans are the ones who truly suffer when a team relocates. The owners still rack in millions, and the officials keep their jobs. Once they moved to Phoenix, they made themselves at home in Sun Devil Stadium. The city was at first very excited to have gained an NFL team. After all, cities will offer hundreds of millions of dollars in incentives to obtain. The fans came out strong to support the first few games of the Cardinals. But it doesn't matter if you move across the country. People only want to watch their team lose for so long. It is hard to muster loyal fan support and ticket sales when everyone knows there is no way they are going to be supporting a good team. I'm not saying everyone is Fairweather fans, but if the team is brand new in your city, what is incentive to die hard for a team that sucks? Phoenix didn't have some long-standing loyalty they owed to the Cardinals. They only managed to go 7-9 their inaugural season, and then followed it up with 2 5-11 seasons. At this point, public support was beginning to wane, and while Sun Devil Stadium was an upgrade from St. Louis, it still was a college stadium at the end of the day. Their financial situation was slightly better than in St. Louis, but it wasn't like they were printing money like they had expected. This obviously made ownership upset, as they had blown up a solid market in order to move here. Recognizing they were going to need a true NFL stadium, they began to start discussions with the government in the state to try to have it funded by the public. The ownership always seemed more focused on doing things off the field than being concerned with on-the-field performance. You think at some point they would have realized that if they invested into players on the field, the fan support would come, but it would be a few decades until they were even somewhat competitive. They proceeded to have poor performances each season until 1998. 10 years after they relocated. They managed to win a wild card game against the Cowboys, and wouldn't you know it, fan support was on the uptick. Of course, the next year they went 6-10, followed by a 3-13 season, and killed the momentum they had been gaining regarding fan support. In 2006, they did come to an agreement to play in the brand new University of Arizona Stadium, which is now known as State Farm Stadium. This is a state-of-the-art dome facility, which made playing in the desert much more tolerable for players and fans. The increased seating capacity also allowed the organization to make more off of ticket sales each game. The addition of more luxury boxes also allowed more corporate sponsorships to add to the bottom line. They had threatened to relocate the team yet again if they weren't provided with new facilities. This led to a beginning of more fan support. They would go on to be a pretty pathetic NFL team until the 2008 season. They were riding high off Kurt Warner, who had turned the franchise into one with an entertaining offense people wanted to tune in and watch. This, combined with legendary receiver Larry Fitzgerald, led to one of the best offenses in the league. With Anquan Boldin making up the other side of the receiver core, they would rain down touchdowns on anyone they faced. They didn't win an incredible amount of games, but fans wanted to support the core of the team. They managed to secure a wild card playoff berth before going on a miracle run that culminated in a Super Bowl appearance against the Steelers. While they fell short at the hands of Santonio Holmes' incredible last-second catch, the city of Phoenix finally embraced the team as their own. In the past, they had let this momentum fall apart, with bad performance following their playoff berths, but they followed this up with a 10-6 season. After Kurt Warner's retirement, they did go through a period without strong records, but this was changed from 2014 on, when they would display 11-5 and 13-3 records. Since then, they have had periods of up and down, with their last 2 seasons being pretty embarrassing 4-13 records. Overall, with a total of 803 losses, they lead the NFL with most L's in franchise history. The ownership is still one of the most incompetent in the NFL. But you know, people who truly are Cardinals fans love their team and are not fair-weather fans by any means. While they appear to be on the upswing, the main things that have kept the Cardinals in the middle of mediocrity is cheap ownership, not willing to make investments for the betterment of the team, alongside ownership that can't seem to make up their minds. They change coaches like nobody's business, not giving many the time to build systems and truly create a table place for players to flourish. Alongside this, the constant changing of personnel has wasted years the team can't afford. Look at the entire Josh Rosen debacle that wasted a year in Arizona just for them to immediately draft Kyler Murray. Obviously, Kyler Murray is the better choice, but that could have been an early first-round pick spent on a receiver of Murray, or buffing up the offensive line to protect their future quarterback. Sometimes their front office makes decisions that just have you scratching your head. There are teams that spend money and still can't seem to figure out how to win, but in this case, you have owners who hate spending money and sticking through a decision. The team lacks consistency. When they are good, it is more of a flash in a pan than a sustainable practice. I think the team is very entertaining to watch, but my goodness, being a Cardinals fan would give you whiplash like a car accident. How often can you watch your team go 11-5, be Super Bowl contenders with an elite offense, to immediately being one of the worst teams in the league right after? It would take a miracle for the fans to get any taste of consistency when it comes to their performance. This lack of consistency is what is dragging down the overall team revenue as well. Phoenix has a huge crowd when things are going well, but they've gotten so used to the ups and downs that they're willing to drop their team when things get rough. Sure, that's not ideal, and there are plenty of die-hard Cardinal fans, but you can't deny the city just seems a lot of supportive when things are going well. Any city is. There are only a handful of NFL teams that manage to have huge amounts of support even while they suck. That is the story of the Arizona Cardinals, and why they have always been a franchise cursed with mediocrity. If you enjoyed the video, you should press the like button and comment down below. We post football videos and documentaries like this often, so if you enjoy this type of content, you should subscribe with those notifications on. Thank you all for your time, and we hope to see you on our journey to 10,000 subscribers.